Okay, so Dannielle Amblong.
Varun Chaudhary.
And I'm Sam Burma.
Okay, so the book I read was The Lord of the Rings. Well, more of the second book, which is The Two Towers. And basically, to summarize it, it's the Fellowship gets separated after the Fellowship of the Ring part, and so we got Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli trying to find the two hobbits, Merry and Pippin, who have been taken by orcs because the orcs think that they have the One Ring, but the One Ring's actually with Frodo and Sam, who are currently on their way to Mordor with Gollum leading them basically, and so it the Two Towers is basically just what each three of these groups are now doing to try to get back to with each other and to Mordor. What I found interesting about this book was that it really delved a lot with world building, and because you don't see a lot of those on fantasy books. Like you just see, oh yeah, fantasy books, this happens and that happens. But for like the entirety of the Middle Earth universe, Tolkien basically creates languages and he creates species and past his histories about those species. He basically creates this new world that like gets you so involved into it that like you want to keep reading into it more, which is basically what happened to me at that point because I don't actually usually read that a lot. And it's also like a really long read. Like this is a big book. It's like oh gosh, it's over 1,000 pages. Oh no.
So we're gonna have some questions. So basically so there's two separate groups and they're both three separate groups and they're all trying to approach Mordor for like what purpose? Like what is it a guy? Is he like God? What's the idea?
No, Mordor is basically a place where Sauron, the one bad guy, resides, and the One Ring which Frodo has, it's basically like a weapon for Sauron. It's like part of his soul.
Oh, gotcha.
I'm assuming so. Like they want it. Like the only way they can destroy it is in like the volcano, which is in Mordor. So that's what they're trying to do at Mordor.
So all the three groups are good though. They're all
they're all good.
Wait, so why do they want to get rid of the ring?
Because it's the weapon for the bad guy.
Oh, okay.
It's like their ultimate source, right?
Yeah. So if they destroy it, then like they get rid of the bad guy, kind of.
All right. So it's my turn now.
Yeah.
All right. So I read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. It's published by Scholastic and in 2008, and it's by J.K. Rowling. His collection of Harry Potter books are well known to be the national bestseller among a variety of readers. Although I've had no exposure to her writing, I can tell from like all the fans, like there's Harry Potter worlds, there's like all these like there's so many like super excited fans. I was like, okay, I gotta read this book. After like 3 years of people telling me you gotta read this book, you gotta read this book, I was like, okay, I'm gonna read this book. And so like it's really exciting because it's like a different world. The summary itself is so Harry's parents are killed by Voldemort through like he uses wizardry and curses them and they die, and Voldemort also tries to kill Harry, but Harry somehow makes it through this tragedy, and he has no parents, and so he's sent off by Dumbledore to live with the Dursleys, who treat him very poorly. His parents spoil his brother, but treat him like they make him sleep in a cupboard. They don't starve him, but they don't let him enjoy life. They just try and make it difficult on him, and they try not to let him find out about his past life, his parents' past life, about him being like having that wizardry inside of him, and like there's all these letters that come through, like in trying to invite him to Hogwarts, but his the Dursleys try and block them off and make sure they don't reach his hands. At one point, he actually does get it in his hands, and through Hagrid, who hand delivers them to Harry himself, and he's accepted into Hogwarts, and he becomes a natural at Quidditch. It's like soccer in the air on broomsticks. Pretty exciting.
Soccer in the air.
Yeah, soccer in the air. So, like, he becomes a natural at that, and everybody at the school is amazed by like he's finally come back, the Harry Potter, the one and only. And Harry gets involved in a lot of activities. Like he sees, he gets involved in things that other students haven't even noticed yet. Like he finds out about the Sorcerer's Stone, and has all these like he realizes that all these like staff members or like all these teachers at Hogwarts have secrets, and he's trying to figure them out. And he's also questioning like why someone might have killed his parents. And if you really want to find out all this information, like find out like what this book is about a completely different world, about like dark magic, and like how like how like the bad people use dark magic and the good people are learning, and there's like different personalities. And the interesting thing is that J.K. Rowling, she uses like this was she wrote this, the purpose of this writing was actually for herself. She wrote this in order to like it was off the spot, like she was on a train to somewhere, and then it got delayed, and then she suddenly thought of all this idea, and then she spent the next 7 years writing about this. It was all personal, like all these characters she feels represent her different characteristics, and the way she writes this book and the story is really great, and I hope you enjoy it too.
I have a question for do you like when you started reading, like were you like interested at the plot? Because like sometimes like fantasy novels that like go on for like a really long time start out kind of bland. So were you like immediately drawn into the plot, or did it take some time for you to?
So I actually like picked up the book like 3 years ago, and I read like the first like 30 pages, and I just like lost excitement. He was just living with the Dursleys. He was just like having a normal life. Like they were mistreating him, but that's all there was to it. Until he gets to Hogwarts, it's like kind of slow. But then once he gets there, it's like exciting. He's like in a new school, learning like wizardry, and I thought that was awesome. I didn't see that in any other book. So.
Alright, so my book was called Rifles for Weighty. It was published by HarperCollins in 1957. And so the author was by a guy named Harold Keith, and he hasn't written any other books. This was, I think, his only one, and it won a Newbery Medal. And so basically the book follows a young boy named Jefferson Bussey who lives in Kansas. And there's this one incident that made him want to join the Civil War where two people came to his house who were from the Confederate Army, and they threatened his dad. So because of that, he wanted to go off and join the Army. So he set off to this place called Fort Leavenworth with two of his friends, and while they were in the fort, they would train and perform other military tasks and routines. But there was this one captain named Asa Clardy, so he was the antagonist in the novel. Is a protagonist-antagonist relation, like in about the first 3 chapters. And so that relationship develops, and then the whole camp gets sent to their first battle of, I believe, let me see, it's called Battle of Wilson's Creek. But while they were there, Jeff, he wants to fight, but he gets sent to the back of the army, which he's disappointed about. But soon in a different battle, he actually starts fighting, and then he realizes how terrible it is to fight with all the hand-to-hand combat, and they're just dying everywhere. So after that, the book just changes to the Union Army, where they go into this Cherokee country, and Jeff spends time there. He develops a relationship with a family called the Washbournes, and so he just helps them out and gives them some benefits like food and other stuff, which is valuable in the army. And so then later, Jeff is told by one of his senior officers to go be a spy behind the Confederate lines, and so while he's there, he learns of this plot to sell guns to the Confederate Army from people inside the Union. And so you'll have to read the rest of the book to find out what happens, but it's a well-written book, I think. And so I think the author wrote this to just show the perspective of like a Union soldier, their motivation to fight, and what the life was like in the Union Army, and so it also helped to show like what their behavior was and the risks they had to take for fighting.
Yeah, I can only imagine like being sent as a spy, like serving, and then being sent as a spy onto other side to be able to like imagine like all the pressure. Like, what if they find out? Like,
Yeah.
I could die. Like, right now, or my chances are on the edge right now. But like, imagine being on the other side trying to like hide your identity and be another identity. You know, like it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, the stress that builds up on you like during war, it like messes with your brain at that point.
Yeah.
So I think the question comes into mind, would you recommend this book? So I think it depends on the reader, basically. Like if you like, because Lord of the Rings is like a super long read, but like if you like fantasy novels and you really like to like be part of that world, then I think Lord of the Rings is a good book for you to read.
I feel like Harry Potter. It's known to be like one of the best series. Like it's like kids like from like 5th grade to like my age. Like I'm starting to read it right now, but like people have been reading this like multiple times. Like it must be a great book. Like I mean I've read the book, but like I want to read the whole series. My goal is to finish all of the books before the end of this year, and I'm gonna do it.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend this book. It's got a slow start, but it's really well written, and it's just a good read about the Civil War, because you don't really find books about that.
So it's like really informative, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah,
More on a nonfiction side, or
like a historical fiction.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Thanks for tuning in.